Hello, One Legal. It's your grandma, Miss N. And I'm very sorry I could not be there to join you today because I unfortunately accepted a speaking engagement elsewhere. So I thought I'd send you this video and taking advantage of the fact that it's International Women's Day, talk to you about courage. Courage. Because if there's one thing women lawyers learn early on in their career, it's that courage is rarely handed to us. It is something that we quietly build ourselves, memo by memo, meeting by meeting, decision by decision. And International Women's Day is the perfect opportunity to ask us to pause. How far have we come? And in the Philippine setting, the answer is both inspiring and unfinished. Unfinished because what happens next is up to you. Long before women could vote, sit on boards, run corporations, or serve as general counsel, Filipino women were already making great contributions to our nation's history. Unfortunately, they did so in ways that history sometimes only placed in the footnotes or the margins. We all know of Melchora Aquino, who sheltered wounded Katipuneros during the Revolution, or Gabriela Silang, who, after her husband was assassinated, did not hide in a room and cry, but rather stepped forward, grabbed his bolo, and led the revolt herself, becoming the first woman military leader of our country. But who we don't know are people like Encarnacion Alzona, who fought for the women's vote in the Philippines. She spent her career and her position at UP to push forward the Filipinas' right to vote. And then there's Maria Orosa, a pharmaceutical chemist who unfortunately is now only remembered for inventing banana ketchup. Although it's an important invention and at the time was a clever solution to the tomato shortage brought by the war. However, what most of us don't know was that her most vital contribution was a clandestine way of smuggling food to the concentration camps, to the starving and malnutritioned Katipuneros who were held by the Japanese. She saved thousands of lives in the concentration camps of Santo Tomas and Capas. Then there was Magdalena Leones, a mousy, church-going clerk from Kalinga, who became the most decorated female intelligence officer in the Pacific and became known as the Lioness of Luzon. She repeatedly crossed enemy lines with nothing but her wits and a radio transmitter hidden within her luggage. She possessed the nerve to maintain casual conversations with Japanese soldiers while carrying encryption keys that allowed the Allied forces to pinpoint enemy positions. Her Silver Star was the only one ever awarded to an Asian woman. And lastly, my favorite and idol, Remedios Gomez Paraiso, who was better known as Commander Liwayway. She was actually famous not just for her fierceness in battle, but her insistence on having a fresh manicure and fully applied makeup before leading her rebel squadrons into battle. And when questioned by the men, she said she was fighting for the right to become herself, not to become a man. She was a tactical genius who combined high fashion poise with high stakes guerrilla warfare. Famously, she said that if she were to die in combat, she intended to look her best for the history books. Yet, for many years, women like them were treated as only supporting characters in the national history. They were painted as brave wives, loyal mothers, and then the occasional exception. But the truth is much more powerful. Women were never absent in this struggle for the country. They simply were not always given the microphone. Fast forward to the modern era, and once again, the Philippines found itself at a critical moment, and again, a woman stepped forward. Corazon Aquino helped the country and led the People Power Revolution to restore democracy. She did not begin as a politician. She simply had courage. the courage to step up and answer the call of the moment. And then most recently, we saw another example in Leni Robredo, a leader who demonstrates that public service can be grounded in integrity, transparency, and genuine connection with communities. Different personalities, different eras, but the same lessons apply. Those who dare win. Now let's bring this closer to home, to the world of in-house counsel where you find yourself. Unlike our litigation colleagues, our victories are rarely dramatic. There is no judge banging the gavel, no courtroom applause, no fantastic moment when the judge declares a clear winner. Our work happens in conference rooms, over spreadsheets, emails, board discussions, and sometimes those conversations where we must say the most uncomfortable word in business. No. The role of in-house counsel is often described as being the conscience of the corporation, which, as we all know, is very difficult with all the pressure. While it sounds very noble, sometimes it just means being the only person in a room full of executives saying, "This is a bad idea," and that takes courage. Being in-house means walking a very fine line. We are business partners but also guardians of the law of ethics and of reputation. We help compliance, but we help companies also to grow, innovate, and take risks. But we should always know when to slow things down, when to ask the difficult questions, and when to protect the organization from its own enthusiasm. This balancing act requires not just legal skill, but also confidence. And here is where I want to speak directly to the women in this room, especially the younger lawyers who might still be finding their voice in the corporate space. Stop apologizing for your expertise. Stop softening your opinions. Stop saying things like, "I'm not sure," but you are sure. You read the regulations, you did the legal research, and you are sure of your opinion. Say it clearly, because confidence is not arrogance, it is simply accuracy. I am not suggesting that the work of the feminist movement is finished. If anything, our profession reminds us that progress requires constant vigilance, but we should also take a moment to recognize how far we have come, from Melchora Aquino, Gabriela Silang, Corazon Aquino, to Leni Robredo, demonstrating principled leadership. And now to the women in this very room, advising a huge corporation, guiding strategy, shaping governance, identifying the risks of fast-moving technology, and protecting the rule of law inside the most complex organization in our country, if not the world. History did not simply happen around Filipino women. Filipino women helped shape it. And so that brings me to the message I want to leave with you today. The law and leadership both require courage. The courage to give advice that may be unpopular. The courage to protect principles when pressure is high. The courage to speak even when silence would be easier. But courage begins with something more personal. Standing up for yourself. For generations, women have been taught to be gracious, self-effacing to the point of invisibility, to be humble to the point of silence, to be agreeable even when we know something is wrong. But here's the simple truth. If you don't stand up for yourself, who will? So, as I always say, live bravely, speak clearly, claim the credit you deserve, and support the other women beside you. And when the moment comes, as it inevitably will, be the person who raises their hand, asks the questions, and insists on doing the right thing. Because history has already shown us what happens when Filipino women choose courage. They change institutions, they change systems, And sometimes they change the course of a nation. Thank you and happy International Women's Day. I miss and really want to see all of you. Until next time.